Hey guys, Mrhappy here, and today I'm doing a different kind of video, one that's actually been requested for a pretty long time and I never got around to doing it, and that is a weekly Q&A session. Now, I originally didn't think I was going to have that many questions to answer, and that's why I've kind of held back and have just been doing questions on my live stream for the most part. But I posted on Facebook the other day, and I posted on Twitter as well, and I got quite a few questions, so I'm going to try and answer a few of those right now, just for fun. Alright, the first one we're going to answer is, any college experience? What would you be doing if not for streaming? So I do have college experience. I have 3 years at NJIT, and I also have 1 year in nutritional values. I don't have my degree, mainly because I eventually got to the point where I felt like I wasn't learning or retaining anything in college, and that I was just going through the motions. I do plan to go back and get my degree at some point, but right now I am paying off a mountain of student loans, but I can handle it, so it's no big deal. Thank you for asking, though. And what would I be doing if not for streaming? I'd probably be working standard desktop support for some company in New York City or Los Angeles or something along those lines. I would probably be aiming for a spot with Twitch.tv or Riot Games or Blizzard or Square Enix, one of the major gaming companies I would like to be involved in. But I'm doing this now, and I enjoy it. Alright, question number 2. I guess this is question number 3 because that last question was 2 questions. But what programs do you use to record and edit? Also, what are your PC specs? Well, I don't know my PC specs off the top of my head, but they are posted at the bottom of my Twitch channel, so I always include a link to my Twitch channel in every video I make in the description. So if you go there and scroll down, you can find that. So this is actually 2 questions again. And what programs do you use to record and edit? I actually record with open broadcast software. I can tune the settings to at least a decent enough degree to where I like it, but unfortunately on some fights in Final Fantasy XIV there is some frame droppage just because there's a lot of particles on the screen, and OBS doesn't really use too much of the CPU. There are settings you can edit to actually sort of prevent that, but it can make it a little bit more difficult to run the game while I'm streaming, so I don't always use those. And I edit with Sony Vegas Pro 11. I've had it for a long time now. I had it from back in college. And it's a good program, but there's tons of programs out there. You just got to find the one that works best for you. Alright, well, this is an interesting one. Why Final Fantasy XIV instead of any other MMORPG? Now, I may have been a big Final Fantasy XI player, and I may be big playing Final Fantasy XIV right now, it being my MMO of choice. But it's not like I've only ever played Final Fantasy MMOs. You know, I've played World of Warcraft through 3 expansions. I've played several free-to-play MMOs like Silk Road Online and Hero Online. Didn't try the new one. I've played Ragnarok Online. I've played RO2. I've played, I'm trying to remember the name of this game. Lunia? It wasn't really an MMO. I always thought it was Lufia, but no, it's Lunia. And the list goes on and on and on. I've tried and dabbled in some of the MMOs that have come out over recent years, and to be honest, one big thing is Final Fantasy was one of the first major game franchises that I became interested in. It was one of the only ones that made me feel like I was getting my money's worth. RPGs in general just always made me feel like I was getting my money's worth in games. And on top of that, I love the story, I always loved the graphics. And Final Fantasy XIV was a game that I bought when it first came out, when it was the crappy version. I still played it for 2 months before quitting, and then I still went back to it occasionally, even though I despise 1.0 all the way up till the 1.23 when it was at least playable. But it's really just the Final Fantasy franchise. I'm a loyal fan to it, and Final Fantasy XIV is exactly the kind of game that I enjoy. It's got plenty of things I can do on the side, it's got plenty of things I can talk about, and it's just got an awesome community for the most part. Except for people doing the hunts. Those people can be pretty mean. Alright, now for this next question, I'm going to switch over to Twitter, because I had one person ask me 5 questions on Twitter. I received way more questions on Facebook than Twitter, and these are the first Twitter questions I'm reading. So, 1, what was the original inspiration for making these videos? I actually have a video for that, which I guess I can just stick on like the annotations right here. It's an old one, but it explains how I initially got started on YouTube. 2, what jobs would you like to see in A Realm Reborn? Puppet Master. Realistically, Puppet Master is one that I would like to see sort of as a melee pet class. Dancer is really high on the list of things I'd like to see. And even though these came from after my time in Final Fantasy XI, both Geomancer and Rune Fencer are really freaking cool, and I would love to see those too. Alright, question number 3 from this person. What throwback content would you like to see in A Realm Reborn? You know what? I am somebody who appreciates the occasional throwback, something that, you know, us Final Fantasy fans who've been Final Fantasy fans all our lives can go, wow, I remember that, like, even just down to the names. But all-out content, I actually want to see more originality in the game. Like, I don't want to see another Crystal Tower, but it be like the moon from Final Fantasy IV or something. I want something original. I want to see what they can come up with. Where did the name Mrhappy come from? This is going to be the most disappointing story you've ever heard. So I was at my friend's house playing some alien game. It was just a game where you have to survive as long as possible while killing aliens. And I needed a name. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't really big on handles back then. And my friend he had his Spanish book out or something. I don't know how he eventually came up. He's like, how about Señor Feliz Mono? That means Mr. Happy Monkey. And I don't even know if that's proper Spanish for that or if there's like a special way to say it. But I eventually just took the Señor Feliz part and turned it into Mr. Happy. So thank you, Jason, my friend from my childhood, for coming up with that idea. And the final question from this person is, favorite dungeon in A Realm Reborn? That's got to be Lost City of Amdapor. I love it throws me back to Final Fantasy XI enough, but not too much. It reminds me of Dark Souls kind of areas. The ruins have a very Dark Soulish feel to me. Diabolos is awesome, or Diabolos, however you want to pronounce it. I see the extra O and I just go, I'll hard pronounce it, but whatever. And the music. The music is amazing. And since I only have one other question from Twitter, I might as well answer that too. Have you ever played any of the Metal Gear Solid games? I have, but pretty much vicariously through my friends. I never got into the series. I felt like by the time I was even aware of the popularity of the series, since I was so invested in Final Fantasy games growing up, that I had been told all the story elements. I had been given the gist of everything, and I had to. First of all, I had to piece it together because the story is confusing as hell. And by then I was like, well, now I don't really want to play the games. I'm just infatuated with the story. So whenever a new Metal Gear comes out, I pretty much just learn the story and don't play the games. I'll leave the games up to the people who have been playing them and have enjoyed them all their lives. And I'm just going to stick to the more story aspect of it, which I love the story of Metal Gear Solid, by the way. Alright, I'll answer a few more Facebook questions before I wrap this one up. Next one, have you ever thought of trying to go to conventions where you can meet your fans? If so, I would go to one. Also, you could get to talk to a live panel on games. Well, I have considered going to quite a few conventions. I was going to go to PAX East. I actually had my ticket and everything, but at the last minute I had an emergency and I was unable to go. And I don't really feel like, while I'm paying off my student loans and trying to put money away for my future and invest it in the right places, that I really have the money to do mass traveling to go to all of the conventions around the world, or even around the United States, like PAX Prime, Gamescom over in Germany, like Tokyo Game Show. Like, I can't go to all those. Those are just a few of the upcoming ones. And I don't have a pass to go to E3 this year. Maybe next year I'll have one. I am going to the Final Fantasy XIV Fan Festival, and that is in itself a pretty steep investment on top of having to pay off my student loans. So I'm trying, but until I get these loans paid off, or at least until I'm in a more comfortable spot financially, I'll be very, very selective about the conventions I go to. Alright, here's the one that got upvoted the most on Facebook. Why haven't you accepted my friend request? Do you think I'm a psycho? Friend request? I'm guessing that means on my real Facebook page, which I don't really use anymore, so no, I don't think you're a psycho. But now I'm scared. Here's another two-part question, and I think after these two, I'll do maybe one more. So the first part is, how important is it for a streamer who is just starting out to have good equipment in your opinion? Did you invest heavily before you started, or did you just make do and worked with what you had? And was what you had enough, or did you struggle? When you first start streaming, you really shouldn't be concerned about everything. You shouldn't just stream to get like big on Twitch or YouTube or anything like that. That shouldn't. I feel like if you go in with those expectations of just like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do, it's gonna go awesome and I'm gonna love it, then you're probably just gonna end up disappointing yourself. When I first started streaming on Twitch, I remember I made a video on YouTube and I said, yeah, I'm gonna be streaming some Final Fantasy games on Twitch, you know, while we're waiting for Final Fantasy XIV to come out. And I expected, you know, maybe 10, 15 viewers. I had over 100 viewers, then I had over 200. Now I sustain around 350 to 400, unless I'm doing some sort of event, in which case it's usually between 800 to 1,000. And really, none of it had to do with my equipment. So I don't think you should invest at all. Whatever you have, as long as you can actually stream, like you need to make sure you have a good enough upload speed, at least 5 megabytes a second. It's kind of upload speed you want, and just a decent enough computer so that you can run OBS or XSplit or whatever while streaming. That's all you need to get started. You don't need the face cam or anything like that. And question number 2, have you ever considered partnering up with another person, streamer, writer, etc. for additional content? If yes, what would be the criteria that would make you go for it? If not, choose a person you would consider doing it with if given the option. So I actually have done a collaboration with ZD. He mostly does action RPGs, Path of Exile, which is a game that I love. And he had way more subscribers than me back then, and he still has, I think, a good chunk more than me right now. But it was really fun doing the collaboration, and I also consider, I guess, XIV Nation is sort of like a collaboration when I used to do that. It's not that I don't like doing those, it's just that I don't always have the right time investment. It's really my fault that I don't get to do more of these collaborations and things with other streamers and whatnot, because people have asked me about it in the past, and usually I just say, you know, I have to check my things, I have to check my scheduling, I have to check what I have planned, and usually I just lose track of time and I end up, it's just because I'm bad with time. It's really all my fault. So yeah, I would do it. I guess it just has to be criteria that we're both familiar with. You know, it can't be me being completely clueless on something or them being completely clueless on something and us just trying to make something work for the sake of it making it work. There has to be some common ground is really the only thing I would say. It doesn't mean it has to be Final Fantasy XIV. It just means there has to be common ground. We both have to at least understand what we're talking about. All right, and the last question I'm going to answer is, what do you consider a healthy static? What should you expect from individuals without turning the game into work? I don't know if I'm the right person to ask about that, since I do, you know, make videos on YouTube and that's how I make my income. But let me see if I can think of it this way. The statics that I've had the most fun with over the years playing MMORPGs. Not everybody needs to get along, but everybody needs to at least see eye to eye on the goals. The goal of progressing or the goal of clearing, whatever it is, there needs to be some sort of common ground between all 8 of your members in the case of Final Fantasy XIV. Another thing is, you need to have 8 players that if they are underperforming, they need to recognize that and they need to be willing to work towards getting better. If you have one member who absolutely refuses to do any sort of self-improvement, it really, really holds back the morale and the performance of the group. And it's really not fair to the other 7 people who are putting in the hard time and who are putting in the work to try and improve themselves and improve their progress. And those 2 aspects are really the most important ones. The only other thing I could really say is expect to fight a little bit, and it's not necessarily because you dislike the other people in your static, but a lot of the times it could just be out of frustration for being on the same fight for a few hours and just not making any progress, whether it be the same person making mistakes over and over again, or it could be everybody making little mistakes at different times. You need to understand that A, it's a high intensity situation for the most part, and that B, you just have to keep a clear head. The angrier you get, the worse it's going to be for everybody. So just try and keep a clear head. And that's all the questions I'm going to answer for this week. If you have any questions you would like me to answer on next week's Q&A, just put those in the comments below, and I'll be looking at the comment section of my videos as well as Facebook and Twitter for my questions coming in the following weeks. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and check out the other videos on my channel if you haven't already. And anyway, guys, thanks for asking your questions. I hope I answered as many of them as I could, and until next time, take care.